When grace meets arrogance under the unrelenting lights of live television, the results can be unforgettable. No one could have imagined that Meghan Markle's appearance on the Clarkson Show, originally booked as a warm, uplifting conversation about her charity work, would spiral into a tense, razor-edged confrontation that left the studio frozen and Kelly staring down a decision no host ever wants to make. The morning at NBC's Burbank lot began like any other. Crew members moved briskly across the polished stage floor, taping off marks, adjusting lights, testing the high-definition cameras. In the control room, producers ran through segment timings, the monitor already flashing, "Meghan, inspirational interview," in bright green. The plan was simple: celebrate Meghan's initiatives for disadvantaged women and her upcoming mental health awareness campaign. The audience began filling the tiered seating early. Fans of both women chattered excitedly, clutching phones and snapping selfies. It promised to be an episode dripping with goodwill, a meeting of two strong, accomplished women in the public eye. Kelly Clarkson arrived ahead of schedule as she often did, moving through the set with her usual mixture of Texas warmth and quick wit. Dressed in a floor-length emerald green gown and gold earrings that caught the light, she radiated the same sincerity that made her beloved by millions. She greeted staff by name, checked in with the music director, and even bent down to compliment a stagehand's sneakers. Then Meghan arrived, 20 minutes late. The energy shifted the moment her heels began clicking against the studio floor. She wore a blindingly white tailored suit, the kind that photographs like a statement and announces status before a single word is spoken. Her gaze remained fixed on her phone as handlers whispered last-minute notes. An assistant hurried forward with a bottle of water. Meghan took it without a glance, set it aside untouched, and strode toward the green room. Kelly noticed. She chose not to comment, greeting her guest with the same broad smile she gave everyone. But as Meghan took her seat across from Kelly moments later, the air between them felt charged, polished on the surface, but sharp underneath. "Meghan Markle, everyone!" Kelly's voice rang bright as the audience applauded and cheered. "We're so excited to have you here today. Your work has been such an inspiration to so many of us." Meghan smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you, Kelly. It's nice to be here," she said evenly, smoothing her jacket sleeve. Kelly launched into the first question, eager to start strong. "Your program helping women re-enter the workforce has been phenomenal. Can you share what inspired it?" Meghan's eyes narrowed slightly. "What inspired it? Well, I suppose I realized that women need someone to advocate for them. Someone who understands how the world really works," she said, adding a small, almost dismissive laugh. Kelly blinked once, caught off guard by the tone, but kept her voice steady. "Of course. Advocacy is something we both care deeply about." Meghan leaned forward. "Right. But advocacy, when you're someone like me, Kelly, means taking on systems you could never understand." There was the faintest intake of breath from the audience. Kelly's expression softened just a fraction, though her mind registered the jab. She chose diplomacy over defensiveness. "I think all of us can understand the power of lifting others up, no matter where we come from." Meghan gave a sharp, knowing laugh. "Sure, if you say so." The tension in the studio was subtle but growing, like a storm pulling at the edges of a sunny day. Kelly pressed on. "You've also spoken very openly about mental health struggles. That's helped so many people feel less alone. What gave you the courage to speak out?" For a heartbeat, Meghan's expression softened, but then she straightened. "Courage? It wasn't courage, Kelly. It was survival. When you've lived through what I've lived through, things people like you could never imagine, speaking out is the only option left." Kelly clasped her hands gently in her lap. "I think everyone watching has faced struggles," she said, her voice warm. "I try to show that no matter how bad things get, you can come through with kindness and dignity." Meghan's brows lifted, her laugh light but cutting. "That's very cute, Kelly. But kindness and dignity don't get you far when the world is out to get you. Maybe you've just never had to play on the same level I have." The crowd reacted with a low ripple of surprise. Kelly's cheeks warmed, but her tone remained even. "I'm not questioning your challenges, Meghan. I'm saying kindness can take you a lot further than bitterness ever will." Meghan's eyes sharpened, her voice dropping so only those closest could hear. "Bitterness? That's what you think this is? You think I'm bitter because I refuse to sit back and let people destroy me?" Maybe if you'd lived my life instead of in this cozy little bubble you've built, you'd understand what it means to actually fight." The studio was silent now. The cameras kept rolling, but everyone, from the crew in the wings to the viewers in the back row, knew they were watching something unscripted, unpredictable, and impossible to take back. The studio went still, the kind of stillness that makes every creak of a camera crane sound deafening. Even the crew froze mid-motion, eyes darting toward the stage as if waiting for someone, anyone, to break the tension. Kelly uncrossed her legs and leaned forward, her expression calm but her voice carrying a quiet edge. "I've fought for plenty in my life, Meghan," she said, her subtle southern drawl just enough to soften the steel in her tone. "And I've done it without tearing other people down in the process." That landed hard. Meghan scoffed loudly, throwing her hands in the air with theatrical exasperation. "Oh, here we go. The moral high ground. The wholesome American sweetheart act." She shook her head slowly, her voice dripping with disdain. "You think just because you've had a few struggles, you know what it's like to have the entire world against you? To have your own family betray you? To wake up to headlines calling you a liar, a manipulator, she flicked her hand vaguely toward the audience, gold digger. You don't know anything about that, Kelly." Kelly's smile froze, not out of hurt, but because she felt the energy in the room shifting dangerously. "You're right," she said evenly. "I don't know what it's like to marry into a royal family. But I do know what it's like to fight for respect in an industry that told me I'd never make it. To lose people I love along the way. To raise my kids while tabloids picked apart everything from my weight to my parenting. And through it all," she paused, letting the silence speak for her, "I chose to be kind." Meghan tilted her head, pretending to listen, but irritation flickered behind her eyes. "Kindness is easy when you're everyone's darling, Kelly. Not everyone gets to play the victim and have the whole world cheer them on." At that, Kelly straightened her posture, folding her hands in her lap. Her voice was quiet but unyielding. "I've never played the victim, Meghan. And it seems to me you've gotten very comfortable in that role." Meghan blinked, momentarily stunned into silence. Then a sharp, humorless laugh escaped her lips. "Wow. So that's what you really think? That everything I've endured is some kind of performance to get sympathy?" Kelly didn't flinch. "I think you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. But strength isn't just about fighting everyone around you. It's also about how you treat the people standing with you." The audience, silent until now, murmured in agreement. Meghan's jaw tightened. She leaned back, crossing her arms like a shield, glaring at Kelly with open challenge. Kelly saw the opening to steer things back. "Let's talk about your charity work." "No," Meghan cut in sharply, leaning forward again. "Let's talk about you, Kelly. About how you sit here pretending to understand people like me. Pretending you know what it's like to be silenced and hunted." Kelly raised a hand, polite, but firm. "Meghan, we invited you here to talk about your work, not to attack me or anyone else." A mocking smile spread across Meghan's face. "Oh, poor Kelly. You're uncomfortable now. Imagine how I felt every day for years. But I didn't get to walk away and cry about it." Kelly's smile was gone now, replaced with quiet resolve. "I think we're done here for now." But Meghan wasn't done. She leaned forward, voice rising. "No, you don't get to shut me down just because you don't like what I'm saying. You invited me here, and I'm not going to let you control the narrative to make yourself look good." Gasps broke out in the audience. Kelly sat perfectly still, her eyes steady. "Then I think you've said enough, haven't you?" For the first time, Meghan faltered. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but rather than retreating, she pushed closer. "You're just like the rest of them," she hissed. "Smiling to my face while stabbing me in the back." Kelly's reply was almost a whisper, but it cut through the tension like a blade. "We'll see about that." The lights overhead seemed hotter now. Every twitch of Meghan's jaw, every flicker in Kelly's calm gaze, was caught in sharp detail by the cameras. The audience, torn between awe and discomfort, sat frozen. Crew members exchanged worried looks. In the control room, producers debated whether to cut to commercial, but no one dared pull the trigger. Kelly finally spoke again, her voice low and deliberate. "Let me remind you, you're here as my guest. And my guests are treated with respect. I expect the same in return." Meghan let out a dry, incredulous laugh. She gestured toward the audience. "Respect? That's rich, coming from someone who sits in her safe little bubble, handing out life lessons like fortune cookies, while judging anyone who doesn't fit her perfect image." Kelly's jaw tensed slightly, but her words remained calm. "It's not judgment to call out when someone crosses a line." "Oh, please," Meghan scoffed, now rising from her seat. The movement alone sent another ripple of shock through the crowd. "Maybe you should spend less time calling people out, and more time listening to what they're actually saying." Kelly didn't move, but her voice carried finality. "And maybe you should try hearing something besides your own voice." The air was electric, unpredictable, volatile, and everyone in the room knew they had just witnessed a moment that would dominate headlines before the day was over. "You invited me here knowing exactly what you wanted," Meghan said, her voice smooth but laced with defiance. "Your producers sent me a list of acceptable topics. But the second I decide not to play along, suddenly I'm crossing a line. Maybe the problem isn't me, Kelly. Maybe it's this whole charade you call a show." The audience gasped, a ripple of disbelief that moved through the room like a wave. Kelly sat motionless for a moment, her hands resting lightly on her lap. Then, with deliberate grace, she rose to her feet, meeting Meghan at eye level. Her voice was low, controlled, but carrying a razor's edge. "This so-called charade," Kelly said evenly, "has given me the privilege of connecting with millions of people who feel seen because we share our stories openly, without tearing each other down in the process. You're right, Meghan. I asked you here to talk about your work, not to belittle mine." Meghan smirked, folding her arms. She looked utterly unshaken. "Oh, don't play the martyr here, Kelly," she shot back. "We all know you thrive on being America's sweetheart, sitting on your throne of mediocrity while pretending it's all humility. And guess what? I'm just the first person to say it to your face." The room froze. Even the camera operators seemed to pause mid-move. Kelly's hands tightened ever so slightly at her sides, but her face remained composed. "If you truly believe that," she said quietly, "then I'm sorry for you." "Oh, save me your pity," Meghan snapped. "The truth is, women like you make it harder for women like me. You play it safe. You smile and sing and tell people what they want to hear, and then you judge us when we dare to speak our truth." Kelly's eyes sharpened, her words cutting clean. "Speaking your truth is one thing, Meghan. Using it as a weapon is another." The line hit its mark. Meghan's smirk fell, replaced by a flicker of anger. "Oh, you think you're so noble," she said through clenched teeth. "But you're no different from the rest, hiding behind pretty words and a polished persona, while you quietly tear down anyone who threatens your image." Kelly took one slow step forward, her voice dropping to a level just above a whisper, but still loud enough for the microphones. "I don't need to cut anyone down, Meghan. Most people manage to do that all by themselves." A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. Meghan's cheeks flushed, but her chin stayed high. They stood there, two women locked in an unblinking standoff, while the audience leaned forward in their seats, caught between shock and fascination. "You think you've won something here, don't you?" Meghan finally said, her voice laced with venom. "You think you look strong because you kept your composure. But really, you're just weak. Too scared to ever say what you really feel. Too scared to ever step out of line." Kelly's lip twitched, but she steadied herself. "I don't need to step out of line to know who I am," she replied. "And if knowing who I am makes me weak in your eyes, I can live with that." "Oh, they love you for it, don't they?" Meghan gestured toward the audience, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "The perfect little Southern belle who never offends anyone. But let me tell you something, Kelly, when the wolves come for you, all that smiling won't save you." Kelly's brow lifted slightly. "And maybe the reason they've never come for me is because I never gave them a reason to." For the first time, Meghan hesitated. Then she leaned in, her words like ice. "The only reason they haven't come for you yet is because you've never mattered enough." The sentence hit the air like a gunshot. Gasps broke from the audience. Even a stagehand backstage audibly muttered, "Whoa!" Kelly's breath caught for a beat. Then, for the first time in the exchange, a flash of genuine anger crossed her face. She straightened her shoulders, her voice rising with finality. "You will not speak to me like that. Not here. Not anywhere." Meghan didn't back down. She arched an eyebrow, her smirk returning. "Or what?" Kelly scanned the room, the crew, the audience, the glaring stage lights, before locking eyes with Meghan again. Her tone was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "Or you can find your way off my stage." The air went still. Meghan's expression faltered, just slightly, but she covered it with a scoff. "Fine," she said, unclasping her microphone. "I don't need this show. I don't need your approval. And I certainly don't need your fake sympathy." Kelly folded her arms. "Then we agree on something at last." The cameras captured every frame, their postures, the fire in their eyes, the heavy stillness between them. Meghan set the mic down on the table with deliberate slowness. "Good luck with your little show, Kelly," she tossed over her shoulder. Kelly didn't blink. "And good luck finding a stage that can handle you." That broke the silence. The audience erupted, a mixture of shocked laughter, applause, and hushed whispers. Meghan strode toward the exit, her head high, but the smallest crack in her composure caught by every lens in the room. The heavy studio doors closed behind her with a metallic thud, the sound echoing through the space. For a long moment, no one moved. Kelly stood where she was, hands clasped in front of her, breathing slowly, her face unreadable. She smoothed the front of her blazer, walked back to her chair, and sat down with quiet poise. At first, the audience only murmured, unsure how to react. But then, slowly, the clapping began, tentative at first, then building into something louder. Some people stood. A few called out, "We love you, Kelly." She nodded once, accepting the support without basking in it. The cameras stayed fixed on her calm, steady face, a woman who had just walked through a public storm and emerged without losing her ground. She pressed her hands together in her lap, eyes closing briefly as if she were offering up a silent prayer or simply collecting herself. Offstage, chaos rippled through the control room. Producers were shouting over one another. "Cut the feed." "Go to commercial now." "No, keep rolling, this is gold." "Get legal on the line immediately." Meanwhile, the stage manager tiptoed forward, his voice lowered so as not to carry to the audience. "Kelly, do you want to take 5? Kelly opened her eyes and shook her head firmly. "No. We finished the show." Her voice had steel in it, steel that nobody dared to challenge. The stage manager nodded and backed away. The remaining co-hosts, who had sat frozen during most of the exchange, finally stirred. One of them, visibly shaken, reached out and placed a hand on Kelly's arm. "You didn't deserve that," she whispered. "None of us do," Kelly replied quietly, her gaze still fixed on the spot where Meghan had stood moments before. For the next segment, the cameras rolled on. Kelly turned to the audience with the calm assurance of a woman who had weathered storms before. "I want to take a moment," she began, "to acknowledge what just happened here." The room fell silent. This is a space where we welcome conversations, even hard ones. But what we do not welcome is disrespect. I've worked hard to create an environment where people feel safe to share their stories, where audiences can feel inspired rather than divided. I stand by that, and I will continue to stand by it. Applause erupted, louder now. Kelly waited patiently for it to subside before continuing. "I also want to say this: pain is real. Everyone experiences it differently. But no amount of pain justifies lashing out at others, especially not in a place where people have gathered to connect and to heal." Her words hung in the air, sinking deep. "We wish Meghan all the best," she added, though her tone carried a quiet boundary within it. Out in the hallway, Meghan stormed toward the exit. A junior producer jogged after her, breathless. "Miss Markle, wait, if you'd like, we can arrange a car for you." "Don't bother," Meghan snapped, her voice cracking with exhaustion. "I'll manage." The door swung open, and she vanished into the waiting crowd outside. Back in the studio, the cameras caught Kelly's final words before the show wrapped. "Sometimes grace means staying seated when someone else stands to attack you. Sometimes it means standing when you'd rather stay seated. And sometimes," she paused, eyes glinting as she looked directly into the camera, "it means showing someone the door and letting them find their way out. Whatever you call it, grace, strength, dignity, I'm going to keep choosing it every single time." The audience rose to their feet in a thunderous standing ovation. Crew members clapped too, some with tears in their eyes. Kelly gave a small, humble bow before quietly telling her co-hosts, "Let's go to break." The lights dimmed. The red recording light blinked off. Behind the scenes, producers fielded calls from network executives and media outlets already pouncing on the story. Clips would flood social media. Hashtags would trend. Think pieces would debate who was right and who was wrong. But Kelly didn't care, not right now. As she walked to her dressing room, she felt the weight of what had happened, but also the relief of a burden she no longer carried. Later that evening, as the city lights of Los Angeles glittered outside her window, Kelly sat with a cup of tea, scrolling through messages. Comment after comment poured in. "You handled that like a queen. Kelly, thank you for showing how to stand your ground with grace. You kept your dignity, respect." For every cruel remark, there were hundreds of supportive ones. That was enough. She set her phone down, took a slow sip of her tea, and allowed herself a quiet, knowing smile. The confrontation would go down as one of the most unforgettable moments in daytime television, a clash where fury met grace, and dignity prevailed. And somewhere in the quiet of that night, Kelly knew this truth. Storms will always come, but how you stand in them is what people remember. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who could use a reminder that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it speaks in calm, unwavering resolve. Leave your thoughts below, and let's talk about what true grace looks like when the world is watching.